Yeah, kid. Welcome everybody back to another episode of the Handsome Homebuyer podcast. I'm Charles, aka the Handsome Homebuyer, aka Captain Permit. And today's podcast is sponsored by none other than Captain Permit. Everybody, investors, realtors, attorneys, the towns are a constant problem. Permits are a constant problem. Agents, you want to sell houses, you do a great job, you find the buyer, you do everything right, and then a week before the closing, you get that dreaded phone call from the title company saying there's an open permit on the deck, there's a missing permit, there's this, there's that. You're about to get paid, everyone's about to move, everyone's super happy, and now that comes up. Avoid that. Give us a call, 516-513-8838. Before you take the listing, just as you take the listing, let us go down to any town, anywhere in any county on Long Island, right? I said it, for free. That's right, I said it. Pull a free CO search for you, and we'll tell you up front what's open, what's missing. What does this do for you? A, it prevents things like this from happening at the end in the 11th hour. And B, if you walk into a listing appointment with a potential listing, you look like a rock star. Nobody does that. You come in and you say, hey, listen, hope you don't mind. I have a comprehensive team of people out there. They help me in every aspect, from tax grievance to CO searches to this to that. And I noticed you had an open permit on your deck from 1965. I'm not sure if you're aware of that. Who's better than you? Nobody. Let's face it. It's a competitive market. It's hard to get listings. It's hard to get deals. It's hard to get everything. Put yourself on another level and work with the captain. All right? And after that shameless plug, speaking of other levels, today's guest is amazing, actually. And I don't say that often. And I just met him, interesting enough. We spent probably 15 minutes together. And you know when you meet somebody, you feel like it clicks. You get that warm, fuzzy, sort of tingly feeling. And you just know that you're meant to do things with this person. And more importantly, you know this person's a good, honest person. They're out there to give value. They're out there to make the world better. And you're just going to click and great things are going to come from it. So with that said, I want to welcome Dean Miller, broker-owner of Dean Miller Real Estate.
I'm almost tempted to say thank you. I appreciate it and walk out the doors. I'm talking about dropping the mic.
Talking about under-promising and over-deliver, all right, which I hope to do in the next 45 minutes.
I appreciate my intro. That was one hell of an intro for yourself as well. I'm like, where do I sign? Come on.
You guys are missing his handsome, jacked-up sidekick to the right. Maybe we'll get a photo later on and post it on social media.
Without a doubt.
So let me give, a little bit of background. I have some questions for you. I think kind of like a lot of things that people can take from this interview, but the things that come to mind for me after just meeting you are super high energy. Yeah. You're totally shattering the status quo in essentially everything you've done throughout your career, from real estate to restaurants to real estate.
And I appreciate that choice of words, because status quo is one that I've always been anti-status quo.
As soon as we started talking for 5 minutes, I'm like, this is that guy. Yeah. I'm like, this is that guy. I try to be that guy. Like, I try to align myself with people that are doing that are challenging the system, because those are the people that are really making it happen, right? And making a difference. You're a broker owner. How long have you been a broker owner for?
I've been in the business, I think January will be 21 years. I've been a broker for about 10 of it. I've been independent for about 6 years now, 5 years.
So, I think people need to take the energy, the work ethic, and again, the thinking outside the box and really kind of selflessly offering value, which I feel like you're the poster boy for. You're also unbelievably creative in terms of your marketing and everything else, which is what people have to do. I mean, we're living in an extremely competitive society, environment, time, city, whatever. I mean, it's New York, right? Hardest place to do anything, best talent.
Couldn't agree with you more.
Amazon didn't come here for nothing.
That's right.
So you can't just post something on Facebook or get a real estate license or decide you're going to flip houses or do permits and people are going to call you. It doesn't work that way.
Right.
You have to be willing to do what other people aren't going to do and dream big to come up with things that people haven't thought of. And when I think of that, I think of you and our recent meeting and interaction.
I appreciate that.
So I guess to digress for a minute, I think people want to know how you came to be where you are, how you started in real estate, and then I know you went to the restaurant business, and I thought you left real estate to be in the restaurant business, but I find out that you don't sleep like I do. So why not do all of it?
All too often. I'm a 6, 7, sometimes an 8-hour a night sleeper.
How do you do that?
It just happens.
Because you have this illusion of, I'm like, this is a guy who doesn't sleep.
Yeah,
like he's me.
It's funny. Years and years ago, there was a program. I think it was called Eudora Pro, and it was an email program. And you used to be able to program what time you could send your emails out. And I was I was maybe 2 years into my real estate career.
Are you dating yourself? How long ago is this?
Yeah, this is 1997, 98, 99 maybe.
Okay. Did they have AOL out then?
Oh, the internet was AOL.
You remember the discs?
The CD that you would get 20
everywhere,
hours free.
They were all over the place.
They're coasters now, and they're decorations in your car. But yeah, this is back in the day when email was still the kind of thing where when people got it was crazy, because I'm trying to remember the name of the show. It was like a Muppet show, but it was all about sarcasm. You got mail, you got mail, you got mail. I'll find it and I'll post a link to it, because it was pretty funny. But I used to set up a lot of my emails to be sent out 11 o'clock at night, 4:30 in the morning, 6 in the morning, and people were like, "You're always working." So it was about perception, and I built relationships with people based on perception that I'm always working. And maybe you could look at it and say it was a little bit fraudulent, but it was a different world back then. Now you email. There's going to be a chip in our head one day that just bings, and we're going to have contact lenses,
God, I
and
hope not.
we're going to watch and see all our emails as we blink and scroll through them. Probably
the other day
freaks me out.
The other day I found out, because I like to go to the city, but now that I'm 39 years old, I tend to fall asleep at the wheel on the way home, which isn't good.
No.
And then I was having a conversation. I'm like, someone told me that Tesla came out with a car that drives you.
Yeah.
I'm like, shit, it's like the Jetsons is happening.
You're not floating yet, but you still don't have to touch the wheel. You program and it goes. I don't know how the hell that'd ever work in New York. Someone would get killed every 5 minutes, but
I saw a video of it. It really does work. So that could potentially be a car possibility. But I guess we're there. So so you got into real estate at what point?
All right. So I was. I'm 49 now. I was 27, 28.
Mm-hmm.
I was...
Grew up in Long Island?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, born on the Floral Park on the Queens side. Moved to Garden City when I was 10.
Okay.
Graduated high school. Moved out. Had some kids. Got married. Got divorced. Bounced around between West Hempstead, Franklin Square, New Hyde Park, Garden City Park, Searingtown. Ended up back in Garden City. Now that my older 3 kids all graduated, I moved down to Wantagh 2 years ago, which was the greatest move I ever made. I absolutely love it.
Shout out to Wantagh. Born and raised. Love it.
That's right. So my wife's from Levittown, and her best friend's in Wantagh. So it made sense, and we're absolutely loving life down there. We've been there a little over 2 years.
And that's where you're kind of planting a flag as far as your current real estate business.
Yeah, I've always tracked the market and where the activity is, and I believe real estate is very much a virtual company. But like we were talking about earlier, to build culture of an organization, you need a hub and you need a place to go. So we're looking at places down along that South Shore, somewhere between Merrick and the Massapequas. And I think it makes sense, and it's convenient, and there's a lot of good people down there, and some who I know are not necessarily satisfied with their current agency, and that leads me into my recruiting opportunities to build my company. And I think we're going to provide tremendous value to the agent community. So I don't see it as being an impossible task. It's going to be a major challenge, but what in life that's worth having isn't worth dealing with the challenges.
No, and I think that kind of brings us back to when you and I started first talking the other day. You said it, and then I'm like, I 100% agree with you. I think as a broker owner, I feel that there's a tremendous kind of lag in the market. I feel like there's a void in the market, and I feel like agents in general are not being serviced the way they need to.
And I think that's a good choice of words. When I get up in the morning and I go to my place of business, I don't have 20 employees working for me. I have 20 employees that I work for, whether they're 1099 independent contractors or they're on the books and salaried staff. It's my job to go in and work for them, to provide them the opportunities, the tools that they need in order to get better at what they do. Because if you're not growing, you're dying. And if anybody in your organization is dying, they become a cancer to the rest of it. And I say that based on my experience of being in other companies when I worked for other franchises. And I looked, and when the top of the food chain, the owner, the broker, the manager, the assistant manager, has that lack of satisfaction or personal fulfillment, the whole company feels it, and it becomes a cancer. And it grows instantly. And it's scary. So I look at it and say, what can I do? You'll hear in almost every conversation I have, at one point I'll sneak it in. What can I do for you? Yeah. And I say that because I mean it. Will I do anything and everything for people? No. But if it's a reasonable ask, or it makes sense, or it creates opportunity or thought, then you got to jump in with both feet and see where it takes you.
No, but the interesting point, I mean, Sicilians have a saying that the fish stinks from the head down, right? Which you've heard that before?
Yeah. Oh, my grandmother's from Sicily.
Oh, there you go.
She's the only Sicilian woman in the history of the world who couldn't cook. But that's a whole other story.
Is that possible?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
My
She blew up a microwave once.
My mother's 100% Sicilian, and she converted to be Jewish before I was born.
Okay.
So I get like the hybrid of like Italian Jewish food.
Welcome to Brooklyn.
Unbelievable. Now you know why I never wanted to move out of my house, and why I would still move in back in now, between the laundry and the food, which I still go and steal on a weekly basis. Why ever move out?
My mom was one of 6, and the three daughters, her and her 2 sisters, were all phenomenal cooks. That's why it was always easy for me to be as wide as I was tall as a child. I was round.
The bread, man. The bread is is amazing, but at 35, it becomes the enemy.
Yes.
It becomes the enemy.
I'm transitioning into a keto type diet. It helped me lose 30 pounds, and then I came off it and I put 10 of it back on in about an hour.
I
just
know an
looking
agent.
at a loaf of bread.
I know an agent. You know Charles Bianco from Exit?
I know the name. I don't think we've ever met.
Yeah, great guy, very dynamic, does a lot of business, but he just did the same thing. Lost like 50 pounds between that and some martial arts training.
Ultimately, that's my goal. Is I got to get physical and exercise again. But the diet part, I work in stages. I always have to have a challenge, and it's got to have a start date.
Yeah.
And I can't take them all on at once. You know, we all have our vices, and if you give them all up overnight, you end up putting your head full.
Yeah, no, you can't. My thing is like I love to eat ice cream, but if I can work out, I can offset.
Right.
But it just as you get older, it becomes harder.
Yeah.
It becomes harder.
Yeah.
I never wanted to grow up. I got my first gray beard hair the other day, and I got a little bit of anxiety. Nothing really gives me anxiety, but the gray beard hair.
Listen, I'm pushing 50 next year, and I was looking at when I hit 40, I said I reached the halfway point. Then I hit 45, and I said, "Nah, that's halfway." And people said,
keep pushing it down.
The running joke was with my kids who are now in their mid and older 20s, the older 3, and then I got the 9-year-old. But I used to say when I hit 45, they all asked, "Why do you want those other 10 years?" Yeah. And I said, "Because from 80 to 90, I just want to stick around and piss you guys off as much as I possibly can."
You'll still be working. You'll be launching some other kind of business.
I will, and that's the way I look at it. Is I don't remember my dreams, but I have moments where in the middle of the night I'll wake up, and I always have. I now have my phone, but I hate using it because the light goes on, and I don't want to wake my wife up. But I used to scribble notes in the middle of the night and wake up and say, "What the hell did I write?"
Oh, Jesus!
But yeah, I've always. I try to suppress the creative in me, but I've always had a little bit of a creative brain. Because I want to be practical and I want to make things happen. And I think sometimes listen, I could walk around with a selfie stick and record myself all day and then go back and edit it. But the 8 hours a day it's going to take me to do, I'd rather pay somebody to come in and follow me and then go do the edit that takes them 2 hours. Let them be really good at what they do. And it's like I always say, I want to build an organization where the people in our company all come to work to do the things that they love the most, and know that the things that they hate or they're not good at, even if they do like them, they can give to someone else. Because if you don't, you're stealing their joy. Yeah. Someone likes pushing the paper. Someone likes making cold calls. Someone likes returning calls from leads and following up with them. Someone likes showing houses. Someone likes listing houses. Someone likes doing the creative. Yeah. So why not build an organization where you can say to people, you come to work here to do what you love to do. And sometimes you got to take on a role that's not that great, but when you know it's only a small piece of the pie, you don't mind doing it. And then you're there to help everyone else out, and that builds great culture as well.
Well, that's the thing that I think is uniquely different about you as a broker. So, like, I'm privileged to know thousands of agents that I work with, and I speak to them, and someone like, I'm thinking about becoming a broker. I'm like, all right, listen, because they're like, I'll sell my own houses, and then I'll have, a handful of agents, and I'll have, it'll make sense. I'm like, listen, when you become a broker, you're not in the business of selling real estate anymore. No. You are in the business of cultivating, motivating, and growing agents, period.
Your job is to establish a vision for the company, create the systems that go along with it, and manage the cash flow. And that's it. And
how many people, again, I don't know everybody, but I know a decent amount of people in this business to say, who does that?
I'm
not asking specifically,
but there's more than enough who are doing it and who have been successful. Look at some of the names on Long Island alone that have been around forever, and we don't need to get into the specifics. All you got to do is look in the real estate, look in the membership roster on MLS, and look at all the company names and see how many offices certain companies have.
Yeah,
and that's great, and they did something to build themselves up to that. But each of those little offices kind of has to be run as its own little entity.
Yes.
And that's what I see. Is I would love to build a conglomerate of open-minded people and run it as a virtual organization. And if I need 20 physical spaces and we're doing well enough, then I have 20 spaces. I'm great with that.
Yeah.
But to take the value, the core values and the vision and the mission of the organization. I mean, listen, we set a vision to have a positive impact on 10,000 families by the end of 2028.
Okay.
And most people hear that and say, you arrogant SOB, you're going to do 10,000 transactions in 10 years. That's 1,000 a year. And I looked at it and said, let's reverse engineer the process and the numbers, because that's how I do everything. And I said, okay, well, if we wanted to, could we do 5,000 transactions, 500 a year? It's still a crazy number because each transaction has an impact on at least 2 families, the buyer and the seller. But the reality of it is we kept paring it back. And when I was working with my marketing coach, a guy by the name of Dean Mercado, and you'll notice that I like to work with guys by the name of Dean because I don't have to think that often. But he's from a company called Online Marketing Muscle. And he really challenged me. And he says, why? And why is my favorite word? And I love the game with kids. You know, when the kids turn 2, 3, 4, their favorite word is why. When they turn about 10 or 11 and you play the game back to them, it drives them crazy. And it's so much fun to do. But we looked at it and I said, my goal isn't to sell 10,000 houses. And I mentioned this in the conversation I think we had last week. When I get out of bed in the morning, I don't get out of bed to make $1. I get out of bed to make a difference. Yeah. And I believe the dollars will find me as a result of doing good things for good people and helping people. Yeah. And I truly believe that. I mean,
and you don't, just so the agents know, like you're there 100% dedicated to them in the sense that you don't, like our conversation off air before, you don't work with buyers and sellers. No. You haven't worked with somebody in, what was it, 7 years?
I haven't physically worked with a buyer. Now, I've gone out and shown to fill in for an agent.
Yeah, well, different.
Maybe
different
4 or 5 hours in the last 7 years.
Different story.
But I have not taken on an active buyer client or buyer, an actual buyer that we're working with in probably 7 or 8 years. And again, that's not an ego thing. I looked at what I was good at and where I struggled. And I study psychology a lot, and I study the DISC personality profile. A guy named William Marston. He's actually the creator of Wonder Woman, from what I'm told. Oh, yeah? But he was a psychologist or psychiatrist. And I have what's known as a very high D dominant personality. And that leads me to have struggles. And being a New York guy, you know, I'm a big fan of one-word answers. As long as the emotion comes with it and you know what it means. You can translate grunts. It works for some of us, you know. All right, there we go. We just had a conversation. But I looked at it and I said, you need to be ultra patient with buyers because you need to provide them education along with the opportunities. Yes. And while I believed that I could provide that education and those opportunities, it was always me tugging against myself. I was like, come on, why aren't you getting this? Not realizing at the time I had been doing this 10 years. Yeah. And they're only doing it for the first time ever. And I do it 35, 40 times a year. Yeah. It's a challenge.
I can relate that. Before this, I owned a body shop franchise called Mako. Mm-hmm. Did I ever tell you that?
Sure. Yeah, we mentioned it last time.
Okay, perfect. So we had, I've done 10,000 plus estimate. We've painted, thousands and thousands of cars. And I was trained by a gentleman who's my father's partner in another Mako that he had, who sold Electrolux vacuum cleaners door to door. So he trained me on the real, like, old school art of selling, like Tommy Hopkins, Zig Ziglar, etc.
I've got a stack of both of their books in my attic right now.
I mean, it's really a lost art in my opinion, and it's helped me through every facet of my life. So, but there was a process. There was, you're out of the car and you're in the discovery phase, and then you're aboard in your presentation, then you have the close, etc., etc. And you get to the point where you're just like, why do we got to do this? Like, but every part of the sales process is so vital because to your point, the person is doing this for the first time. Right. Whereas you've done this like 10,000 times. And I'm like, why do we got to do this? You're going to say this. I'm going to say that. You're going to eventually give me the keys anyway. Why can't we just jump to the chase? But you can't.
You can't steal the joy of their process. And that's, like I said before, it's all about a process. I'm a big football fan. I love all the stories about Nick Saban. And everything in Alabama is the process. And now you hear it. Belichick does it in New England. And I'm a Buffalo Bills fan, so that drives me crazy. That's another whole long story how I became a Bills fan. But everything is a process. And you have to look at it that way. And again,
you have to love that process. Yeah. And that's with success in anything. Like you have to, they say, be attached to the process, not the outcome.
That's right. And you and I do not have the permission to take the joy out of the process for someone else. And sometimes that joy comes with a lot of pain. But sometimes you learn from the pain. And we can be the guide. So I've been doing a lot of studying on marketing lately and storytelling. And I've always been told that I'm a good storyteller, but I never hear myself telling a story. I just talk. There's a guy by the name of Donald Miller. Okay. No relation. So we got Deans and we got Millers. But he wrote a book called Building a Story Brand.
Okay.
And in that book, he talks about in every story and in every movie, there's a hero and there's a guide.
Oh, that's interesting.
You know, Star Wars is a big thing, and I was a Star Wars geek back in the 70s when it came out.
I don't see that.
Luke Skywalker was the hero.
Okay.
Princess Leia was the hero. Han Solo became the hero. Who was the guide? Obi-Wan Kenobi and Yoda. Mm-hmm. And one of my favorite quotes ever, before I even realized this, was, "Do or do not. There is no try." And that was a quote from Yoda in the swamps to Luke. And it's always stuck with me. I mean, I had it on a T-shirt, and I got mugs with it. It's always stuck with me. And I always tell my kids, don't tell me you're trying to do it. Either you're doing it or you're not.
That's it.
And, you know, and that's a lot. I treat a lot of people the same way I treat my kids, because I've always tried to treat my kids with respect and to be an adult. I never talked to them as, you know, did baby talk with them. We had conversations. We talked. You know, when I read stories, I did the voices, but it was never, oh, beep, beep, beep. No, you know, do you want your baba? No, are you hungry? Do you want your bottle? That's what it was. That's the high D personality in me. And I look at that and I say, that's where I'm at with everything I do. Don't ever tell me I can't do something, because spite drives me. Now, you know, when I had a falling out with a business partner in the real estate world, when I owned a brokerage, middle of my career, guy said to me, "You're never going to be able to do X."
This is the partner that you had.
He was my business partner in a Remax franchise that I owned.
I don't see you being a partner guy. I'm myself not a partner guy. I don't see you being a partner guy.
So after that partnership fell apart, and it was ugly and painful, and I won't mention the names because it's not fair and he doesn't deserve that. But, you know, I had always had a goal in that company to say, even as the broker owner, I'm still going to do 50 deals in a year. That was my goal. And this was, you know, 10 years ago. I worked my ass off the next year to hit 48. I failed miserably, came up too short. But I did it. A lot of why I did it was to say at the end of the year, I need to prove this SOB wrong. Just so I could say that I did.
Did he say at the end of that?
I've never had another conversation. I've had one other conversation where he kind of stalked me a little bit, but again, I don't want to get into details. But so I failed. I only did 48. It's pretty damn good when you were looking at the board of realtors here on Long Island. I think that year the average was somewhere around 4.2 deals per agent.
Yeah.
I was okay. You know, I made a good penny. I was happy. Did a lot of charitable work in that time, which is something that drives me. You know, going back to the 10,000 deals a year. So let me just spin back to that so I can get my point across with that. Mm-hmm. So when we look at it and say 10,000 families, well, in a post I just put up the other day, I finally started making public the causes that mean something to me. And I believe that the homeless veteran population in this country is just a disgusting fact and disgusting reality.
Yeah.
Guys and women go out there to deal with the worst of the worst and come home. And it's not as bad as it was during Vietnam. And I don't remember much of it because I'm not old enough to really, but I do remember seeing it on the news as a kid. But these guys, these men and women come back and they're either hurt mentally or physically or emotionally. And there are Long Island, from what I'm told, has the second largest veteran population in the country, second only to San Diego. Mm-hmm. It may be off a little bit, but these are numbers that were just given to me, brought to my attention. We don't have a huge homeless veteran population, but we have a huge veteran population. I remember when I was in the city when I had the restaurant, and I would stay in the city on a place over near 6th Avenue once in a while, and I would take the same walk to the bar in the morning, and I'd see the same homeless guy sitting on the corner, and he had the military hat, and he had the sign, and I would go and I'd have breakfast at the bagel place all the time, and every time I saw him, I'd grab him and say, "Come on, pack up your stuff, let's go have breakfast," and we'd sit at the same table together, at least once or twice a month. Told him one day, "You need money? Come down to the bar at the end of the night. I can get some work for you. We'll get some food for you." It broke my heart to see this guy. And I heard his story. And he was over in Iraq. And, you know, he saw some things that you don't ever want to even dream about. And this is a guy who's really suffering from PTSD and hit the bottom of the barrel and ran into a drug problem and a drinking problem, got himself clean. But now he doesn't have a damn penny to his name. So I look at those things and say, that's where I want to make the difference. So if we as a company can sell a couple hundred houses a year, that's great. But if I can put a couple thousand people into a house and get them off the street or get them into owning a home, you know, you look, the Board of Realtors just did a thing out in Amityville for a Marine who I think is missing either 2 or 3 limbs, and they help contribute to Homes for Heroes.
Wow. Cool.
I think that's one of the greatest things, is that one of the best things about the real estate agent community is there's so much philanthropy that goes on. And, find a cause, something that you're passionate about. So, yes, I believe I can do 10,000 transactions in 10 years. Or have a positive impact on 10,000 families over 10 years.
I believe it.
Yeah.
No, that's great. And then listen, you can make a difference regardless, but the great thing about success, like for me, when I think about success, I think about being able to help people that are close to me or causes that I care about, and use that, influence and money in order to help people like that. So that's a great thing.
And that's it. It's all of, you used the word earlier, you talked about relationships. That's what all of this is all about.
Of course.
Why do I have a camera guy following me? Not because I'm a narcissist, because I want to build relationships. It's easier to build a relationship with somebody when they can see you,
of course,
and know who you are. And if they can get to know you a little bit and like you and maybe gain some trust, when you do finally meet them for the first time, and they know who I am, but I don't have a clue who they are, well, we're building a relationship.
Yeah, they feel like they know you. I mean,
that's it.
That's the beauty of social media.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I want to get into. Like, you have a very, it is, for the realtor community, for what you're doing, I would consider it a very unique advertising, marketing strategy. Mm-hmm. So kind of, I guess, walk me through, that process. How did you guys hook up when you sat down 6 months ago and said, all right, listen, here's my marketing plan, because I really think you should have a plan for everything.
I agree.
And say, this is how I'm going to attack this, and I'm going to invest in myself, and I'm not going to see a return on this for X amount of time, but I believe in it. Yep. And then how did you kind of lay it out, and what are you doing? Because from our conversation the other day, you're building a platform to some extent, or maybe you're building a platform where people can not. I was watching this or listening to this with a video yesterday with Aaron and Rebecca.
Yes.
About how you're like, I'm building these things and you can just take them and use them as yours.
So I believe, I've been involved in real estate coaching almost my entire career. I've worked with Daryl Davis for a couple years in the beginning. I got deeply embedded in the Craig Proctor world out of Toronto for years. And then from there, I met some fantastic people. And I worked with a guy by the name of Brian Moses from up in New Hampshire. And I currently work with a guy by the name of Danny Griffin out of Cape Cod, and one of my dear friends, Willie Miranda, in Albany. And I have a network of agents from all over the country because I love learning. So I went to all these events, and I'd go anywhere from 2 to 4 times a year. And it got to the point where I started getting invited to certain events to actually get up on stage and do panels. And it was very humbling, and I appreciated it. I didn't take advantage of it for what it was at the time because I didn't know better. But I learned from so many people, and I watched so many things. And one of the things I've always done well was I've watched other industries.
Okay.
I think every industry that tries to grow off the back of what it does is going to break.
Okay.
And I think that's part of the problem with the current state of the real estate industry. For all intents and purposes, most of what's done in the real estate industry by realtors is the same thing that's being done for 50, 100, 150 years. There's go find the seller, go bring a buyer in, put a transaction together, get paid, move on. Next. And it's a robotic loop. It's not an assembly line where things are being built. It's just the same thing over and over again. And it works. And some agents make a lot of money doing it that way, and God bless them. I'm not knocking anybody. This is just my opinion. Mm-hmm. And I tell people all the time, because it's my opinion, it may be wrong for you. It wasn't wrong for me. And when I take my opinion and implement it, and it's wrong, I'm the first one to admit it. But I learned from those mistakes. So getting back to what I think was your question, I started studying all these other industries, and that brings me to the point of create a team of people who love to do what they do. You go to the doctor, the receptionist seems to like her job. The nurse who takes you and takes your blood pressure, we hope would like her job. And then the doctor comes in. Let's hope. Listen, I'm trying to be an optimist, but everybody's got a job that I wouldn't want the receptionist doing my surgery.
Yes.
Just like I wouldn't want, the more often than not, the nurse is a better job taking your blood than the doctor does.
Yes.
He'll put the needle in you and give you the injection, but the nurse is the one you want taking the blood out of you. There's a different level of empathy between their jobs, I guess. So I like that positioning. And then I looked at the state of the real estate industry, and I said, what can we do different? And it came down to how do we create relationships? And this is at the time where social media was just starting to become a thing. And I accidentally stumbled on Gary Vaynerchuk. And anybody who knows anything about social media probably has heard his name at least, if not his 4-letter word spewing out of his mouth.
Yes.
And initially, that was part of what connected me to him, was he spoke like I did. Mm-hmm. all these events I went to and the speakers, they could have been the nicest guys and girls in the world. But there's something about when he got up on stage and dropped that F-bomb, it was like, come here, like my mother did. He grabbed me by the ear, twisted it, and dragged me into the other room and said, this is what you have to do. And for me, it was real. And I don't know if I've done it yet, but I'll apologize in advance because there's always a good chance a 4-letter word will fall out of my mouth.
This is not a G-rated show.
So I've heard, but I do like to preface it with that. So I looked at what he was doing, and I looked at different industries, and about 5 years ago, I kind of accidentally got into the restaurant business. Accidentally. So. Long story, but I'll give it to you. My son and my nephew, who are now 28 and 29 respectively. My son's birthday is actually today, 28, so happy birthday, Junior. They went to my father and said, and my nephew went to culinary school for a little while and loves to cook and loved the kitchen. He didn't graduate from there. My son was a sneaker business kid, flipping sneakers way back when. And they always kind of had this entrepreneurial spirit. But in their case, they kind of had more of that entrepreneurial seizure. And I use the phrase taken from Michael Gerber's book, The E-Myth. If you haven't read it, it is one of the greatest business books ever.
Must have to do it.
And I can still see and hear Michael's voice when I make reference to the book. But they go to my dad and they say, we got a great idea. My nephew had 2 small places in the city that did lobster rolls and stuff like that. And it kind of worked and then it fizzled out. So they go to my father and say, we want to open a bar restaurant in New York City. Bring him a business plan. And Dad says, great idea, but I'm not going to do it. And then ring, ring, my phone rings. And he says, the boys came to me with a great idea. And I think it would be a great opportunity for you to help them. And you should finance this for them. And, who am I? Dad gave me life and gave me a great life and gave me great opportunities. And who am I to say no to Dad? Like an idiot. I said, okay. So I brought them on board. We had a 1.5 year run where there were a lot of problems. We found a space, and then it was taken forever. So on and so on and so on. We get close to opening. I got much more involved. I gave them a lot of freedom, and that freedom cost me a lot of money, and a lot of time, and a lot of headaches. And then I got involved. And when I got involved, we have a very different concept of how to run a business. And they were 23 and 4 at the time, and I'm 43, 44, 45. I had to put my foot down. So my nephew decided before it became a problem with the family that he would bow out. When that happened, my son's dream was always to work with his cousin. He bowed out a couple weeks later.
Really?
This is right around our grand opening. Yeah.
Wow.
So I had brought on a friend of mine who was an executive chef for 25 years, and he agreed to come on board as the GM, and it was a huge help. But when they left, he couldn't, it would have been just him. If the other 2 were there, it would have been 3 of them.
Don't tell me he bowed out.
No, so he and I have had a parting of ways since we closed the place in the city, but, that was kind of a logical progression, I guess. So I just went in open-minded and said, teach me whatever has to be done. And there was not a job in that place other than being a cook that I was not willing to do. And I wasn't going to cook because I know how to cook well for me. I didn't get this beautiful round body by accident, but I'm not going to feed complete strangers and charge them for it because I can't be a chef.
Yeah.
And, there's a difference between a cook and a chef. Okay. I'm a good cook. I'm not a chef. So I literally did everything in this place from painting to cleaning to mopping the floors. I literally went shoulder deep in the sewer main one day when it backed up. In an 18 unit New York City apartment building. She had 16 apartments over us, a restaurant to my north, and then ours. When I saw that toilets were backing up and we figured out what it was, you do what you had to do. I showered for about 4 days after that. But
Jesus.
Did
your wife let you in the house?
I stayed in the city that night. But, there comes a point where there's nothing that I wasn't willing to do. And I still have that mindset. You need me to work a buyer today? You need me to go do whatever needs to be done? I'm willing to do anything because I love the challenge. So they ended up leaving the business, and I just learned hospitality. I read every book under the sun in the first 2 months. I read Danny Meyer, and I read John Taffer stuff, and I read about the Bastianich family, and I read everything I could, and I just learned and consumed everything, and I watched. And I said, okay, when we opened up, the goal is not to get people in the door. The goal is to get them back a 3rd and a 4th time. We need to wow them every time they walk in the door. And hospitality was born from me. So what do I need to do? Kissing babies and shaking hands and doing what you got to do. And I said, okay, I'm a CRM and a database guy. We need to build a database. I took my real estate database and my marketing knowledge from real estate, said, what can we apply in the restaurant world to make it work? Now, I put a stat out that was recorded that most people will see on the video we shot last week and call me out as complete BS. There was a little bit of an edit in there, so I'm glad I got the chance to make this public. The first month that I collected data from people, I literally handed out comment cards. Give me your name, your phone number, your email address, and tell me about what we're doing. I'm going to send you what we're doing every week. We're a new business. I'm going to send you offers and opportunities and happy hour and wow the hell out of them. And I said, I'll send the email out every Tuesday between noon and 2 o'clock. So you know when it's coming. And I was adamant. If it was 2:01, I was late. I was going batshit crazy. So I literally went hand to hand to collect all this data. And up until we got over 1,000 people in the database, and we were serving anywhere from 60 to 150 people a night on average. It was a tiny little place. But I would tell them all. And when they would walk by on the street, sent you the newsletter, because it was a neighborhood place. So when we got up to 1,000, I was getting open rates between 70 and 80%.
Wow.
I grew
That's crazy.
It's insane.
That's
you get
insane.
5% on an email newsletter.
I was going to say, it's like, yeah.
But it wasn't just a newsletter. They had given me permission to market to them. Yeah. And I wrote, every time I put them in the database, whenever they would come in, I would sit down for hours at the end of every night. And I had a notepad. You know, the servers all had their pads to take their orders. I would write notes about conversations that I had with people. And I would go downstairs at the end of the night and put those notes into the database so that when I saw them again next time, I could pull up on my phone, is there anything I missed? Did you have a birthday? Was somebody born? Did somebody die? Did you get a new job? Whatever. I built relationships with them without them even knowing it.
Well, that's the personal. Yeah. That's the personal touch that I think everybody needs in every
business.
That
was the hospitality for me.
That's lacking.
So when we got up to 2,800, my open rates dropped, and after a while, I couldn't maintain that pace by myself because I was pretty much doing all of that. I would say 85% of all of that data that I collected, I personally collected. Yeah. That was a challenge, but I loved it, and I was obsessive about it. So when I saw my open rates drop, I looked at it and I said, all right, I'd pull a list of 100 people who didn't open the email this week, and I would reach out to them. Hey, so you see you didn't open the newsletter. And so, I had phone numbers for probably about 20, 25% of the people in there. Or I'd see them in the neighborhood, or, hey, what's going on? You out of town? What's going on? People would tell me things about their lives that you would, like, I don't think I got to that level of a bartender where they know everything. But, man, it's weird how open people will get with you when they get comfortable with you.
Of course.
And my wife used to yell at me all the time.
Especially if you're willing to really listen. Because most people don't really want to listen.
I agree.
They're waiting for their turn to talk, basically.
What I love about listening is I'll repeat what I said last week. It's about listening for what's not being said. That, to me, is the most important thing. You have a conversation with somebody. Sometimes they're holding something back. And they don't want to share something because they're afraid to ask for a favor, or they're embarrassed by a situation, or they have a need and they're too humble to ask. And I'd like to be a giver. So I'm always listening for what's not being said so I could maybe just, hey, you should, the guy on the corner was hungry. Get him an extra bagel and hand it to him on the way to work. That worked for me. But when I had the time to sit him down and hear his story, it was heartbreaking. And I feel like I know this guy to this day. And one day he just disappeared. And that was heartbreaking to me because I looked forward to seeing him, to hearing his stories and talking to him and finding out when he was working and how things were going. Yeah, it's strange. So bring me back to the middle because I tend to go off on tangents.
I want to hear about the future of Dean Miller Real Estate. I want to hear about the next, because I feel like everyone needs to have a plan. Everyone says, like, to your point, I want to touch 10,000 people's lives or do 10,000 transactions or whatever the number is. But people say that, but they don't, what are they doing today? What are they doing next week? Like, what's the future of Dean Miller Real Estate look like 6 months from now, a year from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now?
We're actually working right now on what we call our Everest mission. And once that's done, the next plan we work on is called our Mars mission. So the goal is to get to the top of Mount Everest, but the minute we get there, we know we have a bigger vision, and that's to get to Mars. And I took that concept again from my friend Dean Mercado, but I went to Infusionsoft, which is a CRM type company. That's my database company, and they had their Mars mission on a giant set of their Everest mission on a giant set of double doors, and I still have the picture. And I reverse engineer everything. So I want to get to the 10,000. How do I need to do it? I need to get a certain amount of agents in. And using ballpark numbers, I think we're pretty good at estimating, saying we need a good, solid administrative person for about every 60 to 80 transactions that we do as a company.
Okay.
When we get a little bigger, in the beginning, I think we're going to need a rock-solid admin to do 40 to 50 as a company. And then we'll add, and those people will grow and evolve. And if they want to move up into management or senior staff, whatever it is, I'm there to put them in their position. I would love to build a company that I have people who join me and are with me for 20 years, but I know that's not realistic. Going back to the restaurant, one of the things I prided myself in, we were in Hell's Kitchen. We had a lot of artsy and creative and theater people. And I had the greatest joy in helping promote them out of my place. It hurt when they left and I had to replace them. But when you see people get where they want to go and you can contribute even the slightest bit. I got one kid in audition for a show. He didn't get that show, but it motivated him to go out on more auditions because I let him come to work late once in a while or leave early, whatever. I'm all about helping people get to their next level. I'll get to mine the same way. I don't want to make a dollar. I want to make a difference. The dollars will show up. I think this is the same mindset. So where we're going, I think we're listening to the consumers. We're watching the shift in the market. And that shift not just being in the housing market, but in the personalities of the people who are coming into and going out of the market. Millennials made up a third of all real estate transactions last year.
Yeah.
You need to respect what they like. And I look at it and say, I'm not a digital native. I wasn't born into the world of Snapchat and social media, but I learned well. I mean, my daughter, who's now 9, initially taught me how to use Snapchat when she was 6. I thought it was hysterical. But now I look at it and I study guys like Vaynerchuk and I study the people who follow him who are doing well. It's, Gary's great and he's entertaining and he's inspirational. And if you need it, he's motivational. But one of the things I learned from Gary that he told me, because I had the pleasure of meeting him several times, he said, don't watch what I do for the sake of consuming the content. Watch what I do to see how I'm doing it. So where is he posting? When is he posting? Is he using 30 hashtags or is he using 3? What time of day is he posting? Where is he going? Who's he talking? All these other things. So I looked at it and said, who's doing it well like him? Who does he talk about? Mm-hmm. And I started watching them as well.
That's interesting.
And I started looking for common denominators. And that is always a moving target. So one of my full-time jobs is watching other people. And I'll create these courses that I'm going to give away publicly on how to use Facebook for a real estate agent, how to use Instagram for a real estate agent, how to use a CRM. And hey, knock yourself out. If you want to take it and go do it, God bless you. If you don't want to do it by yourself, that's what we're here for. Come join our organization. We'll do the things you don't like to do.
And there's value in that.
Yeah.
So that they can do the things that they're great at.
So getting back to Christina and Tom, with Lauren Zambelli from Cliffco, I had this idea to start a Facebook group for small business owners. How to create content for them so that they could easily share it without having to go be the creative. Mm-hmm. They could just post. And the concept behind the group was, let's just create enough content in here that people can click share, or if they want to get creative, download it, go to Canva, edit it for free, and post it in 3 minutes. And watch what we do. And I put up one post early on, and we had about 120 members in the group at the time. And it was, I forget what it was, but it was a list. And it was kind of an infographic, but it fit perfectly for Instagram. And I shared it on Facebook and on Instagram. And I told everybody, click share, post this, write these words in. And I got like a dozen thank yous in the first hour.
Nice.
We've gotten away from that, and my goal is to get the group back on track. We tried a couple different things. Some worked, some didn't. But now I think by the time we roll around to New Year, it'll be back on track. So look for that on Facebook, Beyond the Bottom Line. Nice. Shameless plug for us, but we're using that as a test center. So I want to hear from other people. What are your struggles? And some of the questions we got is, I just wish somebody could manage all my social media for me.
It's a full-time job.
Okay. And that's what my thought process is. Between the use of virtual assistants and part-time people or full-time people who love doing it, there may be an opportunity to build a full social media management organization.
Yeah.
I look at saying with my real estate team, I need administrative people. I need telemarketers and phone prospectors. Clearly, I need salespeople. I need closing coordinators because most real estate agents do not enjoy the closing process. And because they don't enjoy it, things fall through the cracks. And that's where you come in 3 hours before the closing to say, holy crap, we don't have a permit.
Yeah.
But if you have a closing department that knows to check all of this, and in your early stage systems, you check on this. So if one of the steps in the process when you get a new listing is call Charles, I got a better idea. Before you go for the listing, call Charles.
What do you know anybody else do you know any other real estate brokerages that have closing coordinators or anything like
Yes.
that? You've seen that?
Yeah.
I've never seen that.
Yeah, there's so like I mentioned to you, Danny Griffin, who I do some
I think
coaching
it's
with.
brilliant,
Yeah.
but I've never seen it.
He has a lot of the closing coordination department is actually built out as campaigns within Infusionsoft, within his database. And this is not a shameless plug, it's just what we use. But he also has people out on the West Coast who have those campaigns and the physical work and phone calls. He has it's an American-based virtual assistant company.
Okay.
I forget the technical name for it, but they do most of the closing coordination for them until somebody physically needs to be somewhere.
Nice.
And I got another friend out in Palo Alto by the name of Gail Rossetti. I'm pretty sure she's doing it and helped Danny build that out. So I look at it and say, I want to have an in-house digital media team. I want to have 3 photographers, video guys on staff full time to not just follow me, but to follow my agents and tell the story of the people we're working with. And then we'll have another crew of editors who work overnight, and we're publishing content all the time.
No, that's huge.
And it's expensive.
It is.
This is not a cheap endeavor. But I look at the potential return on the investment to help me build the organization and say, holy cow, if we can do this for me. Well, we were talking about it before. I think there's only about 6 to 8 hours of video footage taken of me over the first 2 weeks that we did this. But we've got 2 core pieces of content on our Facebook page, and eventually I'll start to publish to YouTube when I figure out how to do it right. We've got 6 pieces of micro content. We've got a half a dozen pictures that I can create additional micro content out of. And I literally just signed up for Planoly last night and was testing it out to automatically post on Instagram or to schedule it. I'm like, there's no reason why this can't be done for 20 people by one person.
Without a doubt.
It's a full-time job, and if you love it, it's great. So let me create a job for somebody who doesn't want to go be an engineer and they want to play in social media all day. Who am I to steal their joy?
And there's value to the agents for that.
Without a doubt.
And you know, it's better to give up X% to get that value when it's true value.
And I don't know what that number is yet, to be honest with you. And it's going to be flexible and it's going to have to change. But I look at it and say, if I can provide you massive value to help you get massive return,
people
it's
understand
a win-win.
And they'll work with you.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You know, does it have to be a 50-50 split or a 95-5 split? No, there's a happy medium because I plan on bringing enough to the table that you look at it at the end of the day and say, if I were to go do this by myself, I'd be upside down by the end of the year.
Without a doubt.
Financially. And that's so
and you
I
lose
look
your
at
mind.
it and I want to, so what I'm looking to build is not a real estate brokerage. I'm looking at it and saying, I want to build a real estate agency. We're a marketing agency and we have different multiple streams. It drives me nuts when I look at a realtor's Facebook and Instagram feeds and it's nothing more than their open houses.
Yeah.
And when you see a reasonably successful agent and they're doing it and they're busy, that's great. But when you look at a not so successful agent who says they're better than they are, and they've only had 11 posts this year because they did 6 open houses, got 2 new listings and 3 closings, well, they're living below the poverty level unless someone else is helping them out or they got a second job. Does a consumer want to look at your victories? No, they want to look at what's in it for them. So yeah, the open house post may be helpful if they go on Instagram to look for open houses, but let's face reality, not many people go on and search hashtag Wantor open house this weekend.
No.
So how do we build the systems and run the ads to get those eyeballs? Who are those people?
And that's what nobody's doing.
That's what I study every day.
Yeah.
I'm not implementing it successfully yet, but I'm testing.
It's a process.
I'm testing stuff every day. I've got anywhere between $5 and $50 worth of ads running on Facebook and Instagram every single day, because at least 5 days a week. And certain ads I've tested don't work on the weekends. Some ones work during the week. Some have to be geared towards the consumer. Some have to be geared towards the agent. Some have to be geared towards the broker. Mm-hmm. You know, and there's a lot of noise out there. And every time you think you have it figured out, the algorithm gets changed. Somebody does something different. I'm not going to complain. I'm just going to say, okay, you know, it's like a punching bag. You hit it, you hit it, you hit it. Eventually one side gets harder than the other, and you probably move around the punching bag, right? It's kind of the way you look at it.
Let me ask you to, I guess, to kind of close out and drive it home. What do you want the agents on Long Island to know about you, about your organization, about working with you? What do you want to leave them with?
I love being around people who are happy, and I love being around people who are happy because they're successful doing something that they love to do. And I would love to get a couple dozen of those people working for me as agents who are open-minded enough to ongoing coaching and mentoring and training, Not necessarily from me. I don't claim to know it all, but I say it all the time. I know a lot of answers, but there's only so much capacity that this brain and this giant head has. And I don't say giant to make it to have an ego. It's just to say I'm brilliant. It's because I have a little bit of an ego problem sometimes. But I know I've always spent my career learning who knows what, so that when I have a question, I got a permit question, you're now going to be the first person I call. I have a legal question. I'm going to recommend my attorney. And if you don't want to use my attorney, who's done 7 deals for me personally, then go to another attorney at least. So I like to be to go back to what I said earlier, I enjoy that process of being the guide. I don't need the spotlight. This is fun and it's nice. But at the end of the day, I'm much more comfortable in my shorts and a pair of flip-flops and a t-shirt in my basement, cranking away, looking into the corner, doing my work on my computer. I like solitude. But I have no problem stepping out to the spotlight to be that guide to help other people. So with all the agents I've had over the years, some who have been successful and moved on, some who have been failures and moved on, I look at it and say, what can I do to be of value to you? How can I help you get to your destination? And then I look at your goals and say, does this fit into my big picture model? And if it does, where's the right place for you? Let's create that opportunity. And where there are holes in the boat, that becomes my job to patch those holes. So I'm looking for open-minded, creative, people who want to grow. I think, I haven't looked at the numbers lately, but when I looked at them 1st of September, there are 26,000 to 29,000 members of the Long Island Board of Realtors. 13,331 or more have sold one house, which means half the people who pay LIBOR, and this isn't a shot against them, but half the people who are paying LIBOR annual dues have not even sold a single house. We need to figure out how to get the part-timer to realize they're part-time. Doesn't mean they can't be successful in this business and do it, but we can't let the part-timer who's not a professional get in the way of us doing our jobs well, so that we can take this industry to the level that it deserves to be at. All too often we're looked at used car salesmen and ambulance chasing attorneys and realtors as the bottom of the barrel. And I think that's a crock of shit. I think there are way too many good people in this business to allow that to be the persona that too many people have. We're not a commodity. We need to be professionals. And I think with what we're doing in web design and how we're planning on building that out and databases and systems, I want people to come to me and say, that's what I need. Who in the organization can help me get there? How fast can we get there? How good can we get? I want everybody to wake up tomorrow saying, I was better tomorrow. I was better today than I was yesterday, and I plan on getting even better tomorrow.
As a result of being part of the organization.
And I think that's what's going to drive the organization is constant self-improvement.
Listen, I see it. I believe in it. I believed in the vision from the time I met you.
I appreciate that.
That's why we connected. How do people get in touch with you? How do they follow what you're doing on social media? If they're interested and they're not happy with where they are and they want to have that conversation, where it's worth it at least to have the conversation?
Without a doubt. And listen,
how do they do that?
Any conversation I have with any agent will always be between me and that agent. I will never discuss anything unless I'm told that I should or I can. So everything is done in confidentiality. We're in transition from Miller Realty Group. We're moving towards Dean Miller Real Estate and deanmillerrealestate.com. Unfortunately, the websites are still being built, and I won't go public with them until there's enough on there to make it work. So the best way to get a hold of me on Facebook and on Instagram is real simple, Dean Miller Real Estate. Do a search there. We're based out of Wantagh, New York. My office number is 516-248-5007. Being that I don't have a full-time admin in the office right now, you'll be getting my charming voice on there, or leave a voicemail and I will call you back. Or you could, I would go that route. I'm good on direct message on Instagram and on Facebook. I am the youngest 49-year-old for the most part on social media.
Definitely with the most energy.
I love that world. So if you ping me through the DM and you slide into my DMs, I will respond to you. So again, Dean Miller Real Estate, as simple as it can get.
No, that's awesome. Listen, I appreciate you coming down. I wish you all the best. I see great things happening for you. I know they are already.
I appreciate it.
I'm excited to be at the beginning of the journey to see how it progresses.
And that's it. I love my partners, and there was a reason why we were connected. I don't know what it is, but I believe in karma, and I believe good people connect, and I'm looking forward to working with you.
100%.
Yeah.
Dean Miller Real Estate. Charles, the handsome home buyer. If you have a house that smells like cat pee, is dated from the 1960s, has 6 inches of mold on the wall, or human waste floating past the basement steps, I want to buy it. 516-777-SOLD. If you have a permit problem, you need to call the captain. 516-513-8830. 38. That's it. We're out. Thanks, guys.